Hello everybody, we're gonna talk about Jordan Peterson again here. Knowing where you are, going through the trenches and really discovering the version that you are supposed to be connected to God and more, because we're gonna dive deep into his interview and really sharing more about my thoughts about it, and we're gonna have fun, so let's get right about it now. We still gonna go to the main point and what I think is important if you're creative, looking to be confident online, even if it's indirectly. I think it's really important to know the person that you are, and I think Jordan Peterson is the best person to me, like I said in the other video, to kind of assess what it is to be a human being. Like, it's as simply as that, and the psychological level about it is really interesting and really fun to me, because I study in psychology because I've always been curious about knowing why do people do what they do, right? I really always got intrigued into it. It's always about the why. Why do you think that? Why do you do that? And it's not about judging, right? It's about really understanding, listening to that person. I think in the matter of just being confident, it's important to know who you are and what you're gonna go through. And I really placing God about it, and he really goes back to the Bible, and the story is from the Bible. And I think it's important, if you're creative and if you're Christian, to understand the point and the approach, and if you have that psychological part that you really want to understand more about the person you are, you're gonna love him if you don't know him yet. So let's get right about it now.
Someone you can't trust is a nightmare of entropy. And the reason they're a nightmare of entropy is because you don't know which direction to take. There are an infinite multitude of potential directions. The systems within you that signal anxiety signal the emergence of that multitude of pathways. It's like, I've seen this in interviews I've had. It's like, I thought they were good faith interviews, and then I discovered that I was talking to a snake.
That.
Yeah, no kidding. It's like, oh, I see. You're not who you claim to be, and whatever's happening here isn't what I thought.
Yeah.
What's going on? And the answer is, God only knows, right? So anxiety signals that. Anxiety comes up and says, you thought you were here in the walled garden, but it turns out that you're in chaos. And then, because you don't know how difficult it will be to get out of the chaos and reestablish order, your brain says, warning, warning, multiple pathways ahead, multiple indeterminate pathways ahead. That equates to incalculable expense of energy and time, probable, right? And so you get anxious. That's what freezes you. You don't know which direction to go. You turn to stone. So when the mythological hero faces the terrible, chaotic feminine, let's say, with a head of snakes, it's a predator. He freezes, and the reason for that is, well, if you don't know what direction to go, how about you don't move, right? That's anxiety. It's a signal of emergent entropy. And entropy can tear you apart, right? It's complete disorder.
I think when you are getting to do something new, you have no experience, no knowledge about it at all. You are freezing out of not knowing what you have to expect. When you're starting a new job, which I did recently, you starting to get anxious because it's the unknown part that you just can't necessarily process, right? You can't assess something you don't know, right? The same thing goes when you can't trust somebody. And like you said, there's a lot about us being fearful of what we don't know. And the anxiety that we all have, we go through, is out of things that we don't know. When you get to start anything new, anything that is out of things that you usually do, you're gonna start having a lot of questions about it, and really think about the what if. What if there could be many options? What if that happens? What if I fall? What if I fail? What if I'm saying the wrong thing? And we have that tendency and that tension, I want to say, to really always think about the what if in a negative way. There's a lot of people here that want to get on YouTube and really start getting more confident and really getting in front of the camera. I talked about a couple of my friends that really get into the idea of getting in front of the camera, but they feel like they have nothing to say. It's the same symptom here. It's the same issue, right? Because you don't know what to expect. or you have an idea, but you have more idea into what you think you know and what is gonna happen than actually really getting to just do it and see what's gonna happen. A lot of people don't like to take risks. The same thing goes when you are an entrepreneur, when you're creative, when you want to start a business. You don't know what's gonna happen to you, and some people have that, let's say, that easiness to get into it and really be okay with the unknown. But again, here, that's a muscle that you build over the time and not something that you were born with. I talked about my mom and my dad. My dad is more that entrepreneur type, and he's always gone through the trenches, right? The failures, the success, and so on. My mom is more so into the safety mindset, where it's like it's better to have something now than to just think about something that you might have that is bigger than that, because you don't know. You just don't know. And because you don't know, it's scary to even take that risk because you don't know. Nobody has done it. Like, what's wrong with you, right? It's not a wrong way to see life and to approach life. I think it's a way that works for a lot of people. And that's why a lot of people would rather stay in a stable job than even having the idea of just, let's say, starting a business online. Even if they know that by doing it, and if they succeed in it, they're gonna have a lot more. And it's a lot more than just the freedom. It's actually doing something that you are passionate about, you're getting paid for, and that actually is gonna get you into the longer term of just being good within yourself, right? In at many layers. But when you don't know, when you are starting, you have all type of questions, and the brain is gonna get you to that freezing mode just because you don't know. It's a safety measure. I feel like the body is just like, no, too many options, too many things that you just can't assess. Like, when you think about it, the brain is like, no, too many numbers, too many risks, I don't know what's gonna happen. We can't do that. The survival gets to take over here. And that's why you have a lot of people, they would rather get to have a stable job, even if it's not the big income, even if it's not huge, than being like, okay, I quit my job and I start something, let's say starting a business. There's no guidelines when you start a business. You have the foundation, you have the basics that you have to follow, but what's gonna happen afterwards is really up to you. And everything you're gonna do is really gonna be you learning through the challenges and the trenches, right? I'm not saying everybody needs to start a business. I'm saying that for those that get to the idea of starting one, they usually get to freeze up because they don't know more, and they need to know more to even take the risk. And even at that point, I always say, would you actually take the risk even if you knew more? Because it's all about knowing everything before that happening. And when you get into the trenches, I've been through the trenches so many times that I'm at the point now where I'm like, if something goes down and wrong, I know I have it in me to do better, to get out of it, because I build the tools for it. But I actually have to try in order for you to make it happen and to make it work, right?
Moses is going about his business, and all of a sudden something attracts his attention, and he decides to go off his path, right? So the path of normality, to attend to this thing that captures his interest. And it's not like a burning forest, it's just something that glitters, right? It's a call. And so Moses goes to investigate, and as he approaches it, he realizes that it's a burning bush. And so what does that mean? Well, a tree is a symbol of life, like the tree of life, right? The tree is a symbol of life because, well, trees are alive, obviously, but that branching complexity is sort of emblematic of life. And a burning tree is being and becoming at the same time, because fire is transformation. And so the burning bush is a symbol of being and becoming simultaneously. Right? And so Moses investigates this. And as he investigates it more deeply, he hears a voice, and the voice says, you're starting to tread on sacred ground. And so he takes off his shoes and continues to investigate. And that's when God himself reveals himself to Moses and then really transforms him into a revelatory leader. And the idea there is, it's such an amazing idea, and I think it's absolutely right, is that, you know, you're going to be walking down your pathway in life, and maybe you're perfectly content, and something is going to glitter and gleam in the periphery, capture your interest, right? And it's partly you, because it's you that's interesting, but it's partly the world calling to you, because you don't get to say what makes you interested, right? It sort of happens to you.
Yeah.
It's a synchronicity, like it's a place where the narrative and the objective touch. And so if you decide to go off your pathway and investigate what interests you, and you investigate it enough, you go deeper and deeper and deeper. And if you go deep enough, you get on sacred ground. And that's where you're getting so deep that you're starting to study that which everything depends on. And then if you continue to study, you'll get right to the bottom of things itself. That's Moses' encounter with the divine. And if you do that, you will be a leader.
It's so well said. There's so many things to say about just this passage. I think what I do understand is that being curious is really the key for everything. I talked a bit about it before. I always talk about being curious. When you are a creative, for you to be a leader, for you to be a creative leader and really create that impact for people, you need to understand what is the thing that are meant to be for you. And like he said, he talked about the synchronicity here, because it's not just you that pick the idea picks you. I did read a bit of it in some of the books. I think it was Big Magic, and it really goes down to understanding that all the ideas, they can be floating around you. There's gonna be something natural that's just gonna pique your interest naturally. What I mean to say is that when I was younger, for example, I hated geography for some reason, and I love history. And I don't know, I think it's not even because geography was not something that was good or uninteresting. I think it's something that could have been interesting for somebody else. The idea of doing it, I was finding it so boring. It was interesting to understand a lot of things about, let's say, the countries and how they were structured, like geographically speaking, and all those stuff. But I think there was something with history, because you had human beings transforming, understanding, and you have situations, facts, little stories, and all the impacts that human beings can have into the world, and all that tension and that balance and all the relations that you can see throughout the history of human beings altogether, right? And for me, it was interesting. I could literally read, learn more about it, and finding more interesting. The same way goes for me when it comes to drawing, when it comes to editing. That are the things that I was doing because I was so passionate about it. I would draw mangas all the night. I was not seeing the time passing by at all. I could create stories, come up with stories, create characters, really getting into that bubble. And for me, it didn't matter what time it was, right? It didn't matter how old I was, because you're gonna hear a lot of stories about animes just for children and kids. It's not, by the way. Have you watched Attack on Titans? This is not for kids. All those ideas didn't matter to me because I loved it so much. When you get to be creative, it's really the curiosity and really asking the question of the what if. What if you're wrong? What if you're right? What if it happens like that? Like, you really need to get so much deeper. And the problem we're having today is that we don't seem to have a lot of conversations, because everything is the taboo thing. Everything you want to say is taboo, because you might hurt people's feelings, you might hurt anybody else's feelings. And about you, doesn't matter really, because the moment you speak, it's the moment you hurt somebody else, and that doesn't create fruitful conversations. That doesn't even create results, because at the end of the day, everybody is gonna stay on his side. Everybody is gonna be mad at the other person and never really had a conversation. Recently, I had a story from one of my friends, and she wants to travel, she wants to move abroad and live somewhere else, and she had this tension with her mom not being in a agreement with her decision to move abroad, right? But rather than having conversations, it was literally two people staying on each side and really holding their stance, but they didn't necessarily engage to understand what was actually going on. And when you don't have conversations, you have more misunderstandings than anybody else. You don't create, you don't progress, you don't get to really create more impact than anybody else, because it's not about disagreeing with people, it's about having conversations. And when I say having conversations, being able to put everything on the table, listening to everybody, listening to each other, asking the questions, surrendering to whatever is gonna happen, because it's not about you. It's about the community, it's about the group, it's about people, right? It's not about you. And when I think about the Lord, it's literally that. It didn't come to save just a part of people. It came to save everybody. The moment we get to not be curious is the end of everything, right? And that's why I think it's really important when we think creativity, it's not just the arts and showing up online. It's the courage of speaking up, sharing, and being creative with the way of sharing too. Understanding social media better, understanding the person you're gonna talk to, understanding your mission, understanding your cause, and so on. This is being creative, right? And the moment you close yourself to possibilities is the moment where you are done from the get-go. So it's important to think about it, and I think it was a beautiful point that he just brought when it came to that. Hope you had an amazing time here. It's the end. We're gonna talk a lot more about it in the next couple of episodes, but like I say all the time, keep smiling because it's free and contagious in a good way, and don't forget to like and subscribe because there's gonna be much more here to see. So bye.